Fair warnings, babes. This is an adult podcast made for adult ears. We dive into historical events that might make some of y'all blush or feel a bit uncomfortable over. So, if you are not an adult or an adult who prefers to steer clear of topics that get a little spicy, now would be the time to click away. For the rest of you darling souls, hello and welcome. Ready to pay for it? Me too. But before we dive in, if you love history with a spicy twist, please consider subscribing on your favorite platform. All right, enough foreplay. Let's head straight to the red light district. I'm ready if you are.
I got something between my legs gonna make a dead man come out. I got something between my legs gonna make a dead man come out. I'm gonna turn back my mattress and let you all my springs. I want you to blind me, daddy, till the bell do ring. Oh, daddy, I want you to shave and dry.
Hello, my name is Summer, and this is Paying For It. Thank you for being here for episode 47. Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome back to Paying For It. You already know that this is a podcast where we dive into the untold stories of ladies of the evening. Their glittering highs, their scandalous lows, and everything in between. Whether you're a history buff, a drama lover, or just here for the tea, you're in the right place. Before we jump into today's episode, let me remind you what makes this podcast so special. We are not just rehashing old history textbooks. No. Babes, we are bringing the sass, the elegance, and the dash of humor to the stories of women who lived unapologetically and reshaped their world, one red light district at a time. If you've been with us for a while, welcome back. Thanks for being here. You know the drill. Sit back, relax, prepare for another jaw-dropping chapter. And if you're new here, don't worry. You're not late to the party. We got plenty of episodes for you to catch up on, and every single one is dripping with intrigue and inspiration. But before we dive into today's deliciously messy story, let's talk about how you can keep Paying For Its magic alive. Follow us on social media, whether you're scrolling through Instagram, liking X's on X, or diving into TikTok content. We're there with all the behind the scenes clips and all the goodness, and you can find us at Paying For It Media. Visit our website at payingforitmedia.com. You'll find bonus content, photos of the places and people we talk about, and maybe even some resources if you're feeling like a historian detective yourself. Leave a review, please. This is so important. Y'all, your reviews help others find us, find this podcast, and give me the warm and fuzzies, of course. Plus, it's your chance to tell me what you love and what you want to see more of. And of course, share this podcast with your friends. I mean, why wouldn't you? Who doesn't love a good scandal-filled history lesson told with a little extra sparkle? All right, now that we've handled the business side of things, let's get back to what you're really here for. You know, the show is all about women who refused to play by the rules, who built their own empires, and who left an unforgettable mark on history. Today's episode is no exception, and I promise it's going to be one heck of a ride. But how the heck are you all? I am so glad to be back, and I know I'm a little bit late, but listen, it took a lot longer to write this one. We are in for a bit of a longer podcast today. I don't know how much longer, we'll see. But yeah, I had to jam pack the rest of Lizzie's life into this last episode. So, took a minute, but that's okay. We're here and I'm excited to be here with you. I haven't really been doing much other than trying to move my body more. Hello, New Year's resolution. Drinking more water. Got this fancy new water bottle. Am I the only one who's like, if you need to drink more water, you need to update your water bottle game. So that's what she is. But yeah, that's all I've been up to. Welcome to February. We're looking very, very festive. And yeah, so I've been reading a lot, trying to get festive, and that's pretty much it. Moving my body, drinking water, reading. What have you guys been up to? I hope you guys are having a good start to February, and I hope if you're trying to be healthy, it's working out for you, because it's not working out for me, but we're trying, and that's all that counts. Okay, let's get into it, shall we? I think we shall. Well. Here we are, my friends. We've walked alongside Lizzie through every scandal, every marriage, every power move, through the highs, the heartbreaks, and the hustle, baby. But now we've arrived at the final chapter. I know. And let me tell you, Lizzie isn't done shocking us just yet. In this episode, we'll see her make her boldest marriage move yet, face a very unexpected tragedy, and ultimately fade into history, leaving behind more questions than answers. If you have been with me from the start, thank you for sticking around for 5 episodes of this wild ride. And if you're just jumping in, honey, please, you're going to want to go hit pause and go back and watch or listen to parts 1 through 4. Trust me, you will want the full picture of Lizzie's life, and it's one you do not want to miss. It's kind of wild, the things she has done. So with that, you know what time it is. Grab yourself a cocktail, a mocktail, a beer, or whatever you fancy. Today I have a beer. This glass was a frosted mug, but I got it before I set up and I forgot. So now it's just a slightly colder mug than room temperature. Oh well. But we've got a shiner, the Dr. Pepper of beers, and we've got a long episode to get into. So, whatever you have, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope it sips good. And yeah, I hope you sit back and relax and enjoy the end of the ride. For Lizzie, at least. Cheers, 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 cheers. And let me reintroduce you back to Lizzie Lape's life. After facing the aftermath of the fire that consumed the Cliff House, Lizzie made the next move. Because if you remember, we left last episode on her big investment with the Cliff House literally burning to the ground. So she loses it, and not only that, she starts to get kind of sued from the property managers and her neighboring neighboring houses, neighboring properties. So a lot's happening. And so, after facing the aftermath of the fire that consumed the Cliff House, Lizzie is going to go ahead and make her next move. She is going to purchase a new home just 5 blocks away from the White Pigeon. This wasn't a permanent retreat or a place to settle into retirement by any means. It was her rebound house, a temporary stop along her journey. Eventually, Lizzie would intend it as a gift for her son Arville, his wife Maddie, and their young son Cleo. Because, mind you, Maddie, Cleo, and Arville, actually, mostly Arville. Arville is running the White Pigeon, but Lizzie is still running the bordello that's attached to the White Pigeon. So she's trying to stay hands off with the saloon part of it and let her son run that, but she's still very much keeping a close eye. And when the Cliff House goes up in flames, she decides it's time for her to kind of go back home a little bit. The house's location was ideal. It was kind of perfect. Close enough for a quick stroll to the Pigeon, but safely situated outside the notorious West End. And that was where all the saloons, Vice District, and the bordellos, that's kind of where they were all situated anyways. So it was like a perfect little house for her retreat, but mostly a perfect little house for her son and his new family. It stood in a respectable neighborhood, perfect for raising a child away from the chaos and controversy that often surrounded Lizzie's adventures. For Lizzie, it was both a strategic move and a gesture of care for her growing family. Lizzie didn't linger in Moraine for long, though. Before anyone could even really blink, she was packing her bags and setting off for the next adventure. This time, her journey led her to Shelby, Ohio, a fresh stage for her ever-eventful life and work. Lizzie was always on the move, and Shelby was about to get its turn in her story. On January 1st, 1900, the Mansfield News Journal runs a story about Lizzie and her next business move. Elizabeth Vaughn of Moran has purchased the saloon and restaurant formerly conducted by Jacob Lewis. The Lewis House was situated on North Broadway in Shelby, Richland County, Ohio, roughly 42 miles from Moraine. Its reputation around Shelby was less than stellar, a detail that likely caught Lizzie's attention. True to her signature style, Lizzie swooped in, purchased the saloon, and set about making it her own. As fate, or Lizzie's uncanny business instincts, would have it, the Lewis House was conveniently located near a newly built railroad junction, a prime location for the hustle and bustle of the travelers and workers. It was a perfect opportunity for Lizzie to turn a tarnished establishment into her next successful venture. Shelby, Ohio proved to be more welcoming of Lizzie and her way of life. As a true manufacturing town, it was a place where industry reigned supreme. Even when the trains weren't rumbling through, the steady clank and hum of the industrial equipment filled the air, a constant backdrop to daily life in Shelby. The town's booming factories drew a large population of young men to work in the shops. Men whose lifespans were often tragically cut short by exposure to harsh solvents, chemicals, and the ever-present dangers of rolling mills. Time aged these men prematurely, and Shelby also would become a refuge for older men with failing farms and hungry families to feed, drawn by the promise of a living wage. It is no surprise then that Lizzie gravitated to this wild and free industrial boomtown. Shelby was a place full of opportunities, risk, and a steady influx of workers. A perfect stage for Lizzie's next chapter and what she thrived in. Under new management, Lizzie's management, the Lewis house underwent a dramatic transformation. Determined to shed the tarnished reputation, Lizzie worked tirelessly to clean up the establishment's reputation and image. Before long, the saloon and restaurant were thriving, a bustling hub of activity that managed to steer clear of the negative headlines that had once plagued it. True to form, Lizzie turned the Lewis house into a respectable, profitable venture, proving once again that she had an unmatched talent for reinventation and that the girl was good at what she did. Many of you might be wondering, whatever happened to Lizzie's sixth husband, Charles Vaughan? The last we heard of Charles, he was just listed as a drunkard in public records, a far cry from the picture of a supportive partner. When Lizzie set off for Shelby, Ohio, Charles was notably absent from her and her daughter Mary's travels, effectively erasing himself from their new life, or Lizzie erasing him from their new life. It's little surprise that on April 27th, 1900, it was announced that Lizzie was filing for divorce from Charles. In true Lizzie fashion, she hired a top-notch legal team to handle the case. Her claim? Infidelity. And she had the receipts. Lizzie cited an incident when Charles was arrested and she refused to bail him out after discovering just the day before that he had been unfaithful. By September 11th, 1900, Lizzie's divorce was finalized. She walked away with full custody of their daughter, Mary, and in Lizzie's eyes, most importantly, all of her property. Lizzie proved once again that she had the grit to protect what's most important. While Lizzie was securing her independence, trouble was brewing for her son Arville and his wife Maddie. On July 31st, 1900, two articles ran in the Akron newspaper announcing that Maddie was filing for divorce from Arville. She had already moved to Cuyahoga to live with her aunts and uncle Lily and Dick Underwood, who were the managers of the Cliff House, which that relationship didn't end very well. Arville, meanwhile, had slipped deeper into the lifestyle of a saloon owner, with his drinking spiraling out of control. Despite his struggles, though, Arville wasn't ready to give up his family. Determined to reconcile, he began making efforts to turn his life around and win back Maddie and their young son, Cleo. Despite Arville's efforts to refute Maddie's claims, the odds were stacked against him. Maddie alleged that Arville failed to provide a proper home, was unfaithful, and became a habitual drunkard. Arville tried to counter, pointing out that the house his mother had purchased for them, that he owned the White Pigeon Saloon. However, the courts found Maddie's claims to be credible, supported by evidence of his drinking and behavior. On December 7th, 1900, the divorce was finalized. The ruling granted Maddie custody of their son Cleo, marking a definite end to their troubled marriage. For Arville, the verdict underscored the personal toll his lifestyle had taken on him and his family. This is going to mark a particularly dark chapter for Arville. The divorce, the loss of his family, seemed to set him on a downward spiral, leading him down a path that was both troubling and fascinating. But don't worry, we'll dive into this twist and turns of Arville's story soon enough. For now, let's take a quick check back in with Lizzie. In January 1901, Lizzie suffered a significant setback when she officially lost the lawsuit over the Cliff House. She had fought fiercely to keep the land, but in the end, the court ruled against her. The property, along with what remained after the devastating fire, was sold in an auction. This was a crushing blow for Lizzie, a loss of both business venture and a personal dream she had worked hard to maintain. But knowing Lizzie, it's unlikely she stayed down for long. This defeat would only fuel her determination to rise again and find new opportunities. That same month, January 1901, Lizzie found herself temporarily relocating back to Moraine with her son Arville, as he was beginning to slip further down a very dark path. Lizzie felt compelled to step in. As a mother, she couldn't stand by while he struggled, even as she was reeling from her own losses. Or maybe she just didn't want to see the white pigeon go up in flames as well, just in a different way. In January 1901, trouble came crashing down on Oliverville when the white pigeon was raided. This incident marked the beginning of a turbulent period for Lizzie, prompting her to lease out the bordello to another local madam, Madam Bunch. I really want to call her Brunch, but it's Bunch. However, the chaos was really far from over. Shortly after, another raid rocked Moraine, this time orchestrated by Mayor W.H. McClure, who sought to catch the city's underbelly off guard. In a coordinated effort, 5 different establishments were raided in a single night, which is not common, including gambling dens, red light district, houses. The operation was so thorough that even an officer of the peace found himself getting arrested during the sweep, which is quite embarrassing for him. This raid signaled a significant shift in Moraine's approach to vice enforcement. For the first time, clients along with houses and their operators were fined and arrested. Previously, it had been customary for only the house workers, madams, and managers to face consequences. This crackdown marked a turning point, though, signaling a tougher stance on both sides of the illicit transactions and changing the landscape of Moraine's vice scene. So this is important. This is a very important moment in Moraine's history, but mostly the White Pigeon's history, because now Moraine has decided they're no longer just going to fine and arrest the workers and the madams or the managers. They're taking in the customers. And this was not something that would happen to the men who were visiting the saloon. They could go in, spend all their money, have a grand old time, but then disappear into the night if a raid ever happened. not so much anymore. And so this could be a huge blow because as a man, if you're in a higher standing and you're going to a saloon, you cannot take the risk of being arrested and ruining your reputation. So this was big. This was a big turning point for the White Pigeon. By 1901, Arville was spiraling out of control. The White Pigeon had slipped into debt, and Arville was drinking heavily, okay? He was trying to numb the stress of his financial struggles, or he was just trying to numb life. Who knows? The situation only worsened as he found himself under constant scrutiny from the press, which eagerly seized any chance to run his name in the headlines because he was the son of Lizzie Lape, an infamous madam, an infamous businesswoman, and so of course he was under constant watch. On August 11th, 1901, the Mansfield News ran an article reporting Arville Lape was stabbed in the thigh in a drunken row at the White Pigeon. Though the papers misspelled his name, it was clear they were referring to Lizzie's son. The incident highlighted how deeply Arville was being crushed under the weight of trying to succeed a business that was both demanding, scandal-prone, the constant public attention paired with his own personal demons made it nearly impossible for him to find any kind of stability. As Lizzie struggled with Arville's downward spiral, another challenge emerges, this time in the form of a lawsuit. On October 10th, 1901, the Moran Daily Star reported that Madam Mattie Weatherholt was suing Lizzie for failure to allow access to the White Pigeon. To the White Pigeon. Mattie claims she had rented the property from Lizzie for $50 per month, but Lizzie firmly denied this claim. In the end, the court sided with Lizzie, and Mattie Weatherholt lost her case. Still, the lawsuit stirred up a lot of gossip, further tarnishing the already precarious reputation of the White Pigeon. At one point, the White Pigeon had an amazing reputation, and Lizzie made sure of that, but lately it started to take a nosedive. And no matter what Lizzie was trying to do to try to navigate that situation and keep her son out of trouble and keep the White Pigeon out of trouble, it was not working. With ongoing raids, Lizzie's public legal battles, and Arville's increasingly erratic behavior, the saloon's reputation took a significant hit. For Lizzie, these setbacks marked a period of relentless challenges that tested her resilience and ability to navigate a tumultuous world, one where she wasn't so used to because she kind of had to watch out for her son, and she's always only had to watch out for herself and maybe some husbands, but she can't just drop her son. He technically owns the saloon part of the White Pigeon, so she's having to really navigate that situation, and I don't think she enjoyed it. Things are going to reach a breaking point for Arville, though, on November 9th, 1901, when he was arrested for theft. The same day, an article titled "The Bicycle Bandit" it's too good. "The Bicycle Bandit Boy" ran in the local paper, written by none other than Warren G. Harding. Yes, the future president of the United States, which you gotta go back and listen to part 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 so you understand that. Anyways, the article reads, Arville Lape, a boy about 18 years of age, he was actually 23 and his name was Arville, was arrested on suspicion Friday night by local officers. The arrest took place in the North End, and the boy was taken to the city prison and locked up. He had in his possession 8 pieces of railroad brass weighing about 65 pounds. The brass comprised car journals and other fixtures. No burglary has been reported at the police station, but the officers will investigate the matter before releasing the boy. The stolen brass is going to be identified that morning by the officials of the Big Four Railroad, who took possession of the material. The brass had been stored in a shanty near the junction. The door was fastened with a padlock. This would get unlocked by the thief himself, who just so happened to have the key to the padlock. So Arvell was not doing so good. I mean, if you're gonna steal, maybe don't unlock the door. Like, I don't know. Maybe don't steal, but don't do that. Like, what? I guess he just didn't expect to get caught. The late boy had a bicycle when found by officers, Patterson, Patterson, and Mohan. At first, he denied being its owner, but later said that the machine belonged to him. The wheel was taken to the city prison to await investigation. Lape appeared before the mayor this afternoon, waived examination, and was bounced over to the grand jury in the sum of $100. He failed to give bond and is now an inmate of the county jail. This was a nightmare for Lizzie, watching her son's life spiral very much further out of control, but also now she has responsibility of the white pigeon. Arvell's debts were mounting like crazy, and in a, I guess, desperate attempt to escape his financial troubles, he is going to resort to trying to burglarize a railroad company. That target being the 8 pieces of brass from the company. At the time, brass was a hot commodity, fetching a good price in the market. For a drunken bartender and a failing business owner drowning in debt, it must have seemed like a quick solution to his problems, but the act of theft only compounded his troubles, really, landing him in jail and plastering his name across the headlines. Now, between November 1901 and the end of January 1902, Arvell was held in the Marion County Jail. This was, of course, not a good stay, as no stay in the jail is. The county jail were overcrowded and underfunded. The prisoner mix was indiscriminate, with hardened criminals mixed with those accused of very minor offenses. On November 6, 1902, the Daily Star ran another quick article written by W.G. Harding, and it read, Arvell Lape pleads guilty to burglary. Arvell pleads guilty to the charges and was immediately transferred to the Mansfield Reformatory. In some ways, this was a small stroke of luck, as he narrowly avoided being sent to the state penitentiary, which was a far harsher place to be. However, life at the reformatory was no picnic. Winters were bone-chilling in the unheated cells, and summers were stifling, reeking of sweat and overcrowding. The Mansfield Reformatory, however, had a purpose beyond punishment. It was designed to rehabilitate young men and teach them honest trades. For Arvell, now known as Prisoner 1236, this would be a chance to work off his time and perhaps gain skills that could help him turn his life around. Whether he would seize that opportunity or remain a prisoner of his own poor decisions is yet to be seen. Now back to Lizzie. On February 16th, 1903, Lizzie tied the knot once again to husband number 7. If you're keeping count, which I had to go back in my notes and count because I lost track of her husbands and how many times she got married, and I doubted myself and I was like, wait, that doesn't seem right. And so yes, I'm almost 99.9% sure this is her 7th husband. This time, she married Foreman William Beautelet Shetter. That's a name. William Beautelet Shetter, a 29-year-old divorced father of 3. At the time of their marriage, Lizzie was 49 years old, providing once again that age or circumstances never slowed her down. The couple chooses Covington, Kentucky as their wedding and honeymoon destination. Covington, with its thriving vice district, was vibrant and fitting backdrop for Lizzie's latest chapter. Known as a vice tropopolis, the city was alive with saloons, gambling houses, and red light establishment, a scene that likely felt both familiar and exhilarating to Lizzie. It's no surprise that the newlyweds celebrated there, immersing themselves in the city's lively, if not scandalous, atmosphere. Lizzie's trip to Covington, though, seemed to spark a shift in her perspective. Perhaps it was the influence of her new husband, William, with his established career outside the industry, or maybe it was the changing political climate in Moraine that caught her attention. Lizzie was nothing if not a sharp observer of her surroundings, and she likely sensed that her world was evolving and not necessarily in her favor. Moraine's political winds were shifting, and Lizzie, ever the pragmatist, might have realized it was time to start planning for her future. Whether this meant branching out into a new line of work, setting up a safety net, or even hedging her bets with yet another husband, Lizzie wasn't one to sit idle by while the tides changed. One thing was certain, Lizzie always knew how to adapt, and this moment in her life seemed to signal another reinvention was on the horizon. By the time of Lizzie's new marriage in 1903, Moraine's West End was experiencing a systematic shift, driven by a religious revival. At the heart of this movement was entrepreneur Edward Huber, who was determined to reform the neighborhood's wild reputation. In 1901, Huber completed a charming cottage-style church that opened its doors that spring, signaling the start of a spiritual campaign. The Wesley M.E. Church, located just 1 block from the White Pigeon, cast its evangelicalist shadow over Lizzie's notorious establishment. Week after week, its congregation held revival meetings calling out to the lost souls of the West End. The Ladies' Aid Society offered free refreshments, boxed lunches, and a church socials, providing both nourishment and a persuasive reminder of moral alternative they hoped to represent. By 1903, the religious fever in Moraine was undeniable. The revival energy had reached fever pitches, threatening to disrupt the status quo of the West End's saloons, gambling halls, and brothels. For Lizzie, the church's presence wasn't just a symbol of change, it was a direct challenge to her livelihood, and a sign that her days as a key player in Moraine's vice scene might be very numbered. On March 17th, 1903, just months after marrying William, Lizzie made a bold and unexpected move that shocked the community. Standing on the same public stage that had so often been used to scrutinize and condemn her, Lizzie turned to the tables. She openly confessed her sins and announced her conversion, joining the growing wave of religious fever sweeping through Moraine. So she was like, I'm saved, and I am releasing myself from the sins, and I'm no longer participating. But Lizzie wasn't one to just stop at mere words. In a dramatic declaration, she revealed plans to transfer the White Pigeon, her infamous saloon and bordello, into a home for the unwed mothers. The announcement was a powerful statement, reclaiming the narrative surrounding her life while aligning herself with the moral movement reshaping Moraine. This act wasn't just redemption, it was, again, reinvention, a masterstroke of adaptability that signaled a new chapter for Lizzie. Whether motivated by genuine faith, a strategic move to secure her place in the changing community, or perhaps a mix of both, Lizzie's transformation was as public as it was profound. The town watched as the former madam took her first steps towards her new identity. On August 1st, 1903, at the age of 25, Orville was finally paroled. After spending a year in the Mansfield Reformatory and nearly an additional year in the holding cell, he was finally a free man once again. Determined to leave his troubled past behind, Orville wasted no time securing a job at Moraine's Malleable Ironworks. Free from the pressure of running a saloon and the chaos that had consumed his life, he now had a chance to focus on steady work and rebuilding his life. The ironworks job provided Orville with structure and a path to redemption. While his journey was far from over, this marked a fresh start, an opportunity to leave his darker days behind and prove the change was possible. For both Lizzie and Orville, 1903 was shaping up to be a year of transformation. Now, just when you thought things couldn't get any more complicated, let's talk about Maddie, Orville's ex-wife, who had a tumultuous journey of her own. In September of 1903, Maddie, after years of hardship in her second marriage, files for divorce. Her second husband had proved to be cruel and unkind, a situation that had clearly taken its toll on Maddie. By November, the courts granted her the divorce, finally freeing her from a very toxic relationship. But hold on, because here's where it takes a twist. Like all of Lizzie's life and her kid's life and everyone involved in her, nothing is just straightforward. Because just 2 weeks after the divorce is finalized, Maddie and Orville, who had once parted ways, shock everyone by remarrying. It's as if the past had never happened. What's behind this sudden reunion? Was it true love, or perhaps a combination of necessity and familiarity? Only time would tell. By July 1904, Orville had switched jobs again, this time working at the Shelby 2 Works. With a new position came better paycheck and, perhaps more importantly, the opportunity to be closer to his mother, Lizzie. Orville and his family made the move to Shelby, a fresh start in a new town that offered not only a more stable income, but also the chance to reconnect with Lizzie and hopefully rebuild their relationship, and also allow him to be close to his, or allow his son to be close to his grandmother again. So with this move, Orville was taking significant steps towards a more grounded life, closer to family, a more stable job, and away from the turmoil that had once defined his existence. The question remained, though, whether this new chapter would bring the peace and redemption he so desperately clearly sought. In 1904, Lizzie is going to make an even bolder move. She decides to put the White Pigeon up for sale. The iconic establishment, once the heart of her empire, was sold for $5,500 to a farmer's family. This marked the end of an era for both Lizzie and her son Orville. Although Lizzie had publicly transformed the White Pigeon into a home for the unwed mothers, some people couldn't shake their doubts about her intentions. The town had seen enough of Lizzie's clever reinventations to question whether this new venture was as saintly as she claims. But it wouldn't matter because as she sells the White Pigeon, the story for the White Pigeon doesn't end there. The family who would purchase the property wasn't bothered by the church being just one block away. Instead, they saw an opportunity, or was given the opportunity. With a nod to the building's past, they reopened the White Pigeon as a brothel and saloon, returning it to its former glory. How long it lasted is a mystery to history. For Lizzie, this was, of course, a bittersweet farewell. She had reinvented herself at the White Pigeon. It was always her fallback. It was her home. As much a part of her legacy as it was hers. And it would always be a symbol of the wild life she left behind. Or did she leave it behind? On September 9th, 1905, the Mansfield News reported yet another divorce in Lizzie's saga. That's right, she had filed for divorce again. By this point, no one was surprised. Lizzie had made a career out of reinvention, and her marriages often seemed to serve as part of that pattern. By October 30th, Lizzie's divorce was finalized. True to form, she walked away not only this time with property intact, but also securing alimony from her now ex-husband because he held a stable job. For a time, Lizzie took a step back from her usual whirlwind of business ventures and personal dramas, focusing instead on family life. She played the roles of both mother and grandmother, raising her daughter Mary while also helping her son Orville and his wife Maddie care for their son Cleo. But Lizzie's step back from drama didn't last long, because on January 22nd, 1906, the Akron Journal reported that Orville was seeking a divorce from Maddie. His cited reason? Extreme cruelty. While the details behind Orville's claims of extreme cruelty remained murky, his case was strong enough to sway the courts in his favor. He not only won his divorce from Maddie, but also achieved something rare for the time: a father gaining custody of his child. With Cleo now in his care, Orville faced a new chapter in his life, this time as a single father. It was a significant shift in his tumultuous journey, and with Lizzie nearby to lend a hand, perhaps this marked the beginning of a more stable period for the Lape family. With their history, stability always came with an asterisk. Orville's next chapter included yet another marriage, but this union appeared to be little more than a historical rebound. The marriage was short-lived and ultimately ended in divorce. Details about this brief relationship are scarce, shrouded in the haze of history, but it seems to have been a fleeting attempt at finding stability for his son, or perhaps companionship after his tumultuous first and second marriage. In a twist that feels almost poetic, Orville went on to meet and marry Lottie Coulter, a woman with a past as colorful as his mother. Lottie had been married 7 times before, making her a kindred spirit in the art of matrimony, which is very, very interesting. The saying about sons falling for women who remind them of their mothers seems almost tailor-made for this situation. Like Lizzie, Lottie was no stranger to reinvention and navigating the life's complexities on her own terms. It's hard not to wonder if Orville saw echoes of Lizzie's resilience and charisma in Lottie, or if he was simply drawn familiarity of a woman who could hold her own in any situation, like his mother. Now, we aren't judging Orville nor Lottie, but we are giving them a side eye just a teensy bit. At this point, it is presumed that Lizzie had stepped into care for her grandson Cleo while still raising her young daughter Mary. The 2 children, close in age, likely kept Lizzie on her toes, offering her a rare glimpse into something resembling domestic normalcy, which is not normal for Lizzie. But Lizzie Lape wasn't built for quiet, predictable days. It wouldn't be long before the siren call of the vice, the same one that had shaped so much of her life, began to lure her back. Whether it was a desire for excitement, the challenge, or the independence that her ventures always provided, Lizzie was about to step back into the world she knew best, providing that her spirit of reinvention was far from extinguished. And with the siren call, that could only mean one thing and one thing only for our dear Lizzie. Can you guess what it was? Did you guess an 8th marriage? Well, if you did, you would be correct. In 1908, Lizzie will marry again a farmer, J.D. France, who owned 13 acres in Norwalk. So how did they meet? How did they fall in love? Oh, well, my friends, that is a mystery to history. If love was even involved, is questionable. But if you know anything about Lizzie, then you know her marriage is going to have something that makes us all go, girl, you wild. So let's get into it, shall we? May 19th, 1908, Lizzie will start the day off with a purchase of 12 acres of land in Greenfield for $800 in her name and her name only. By the end of that same day, she will have been married to John D. France. As we near the end of Lizzie's story and what we believe to be her last marriage, which honestly is more shocking than anything else, it becomes clear that this was her boldest union ever. By this point in her life, babe had no shame in her game. Make no mistake, because this was her game. Lizzie's story has unfolded very differently than many of the madams we've covered here on Paying For It. Most of their tales revolve around their saloons, bordellos, and the women who worked within them. But as I got to know Lizzie, I realized her story wasn't really about the empire she built or the businesses she ran. No, Lizzie's story was about her. Unlike so many madams who transitioned from working girls to business owners, Lizzie never truly left the game. At her core, she remained her own best investment. She never stopped selling herself, whether for survival, power, or sheer determination, to control her own fate. And that, my friends, is what makes her story so damn fascinating. Lizzie was a woman who knew exactly how to get what she wanted, and she used her skills to make sure she got it. From the very start, we see this play out in her marriage to her best client, Arville's father, Jeremy Lape. Now, do I think there was a little bit of love there? Sure. But let's not be naive. It was a transaction nonetheless. And this wasn't just one-time thing. This was Lizzie's pattern. Every marriage she entered had a purpose. A need would present itself in her life, whether it was stability, financial gain, a new opportunity, and Lizzie would go on the hunt. She'd prowl for the right man, the one who could provide what she needed, and when she found him, a deal was struck. Lizzie wasn't just playing the game, she was the game. J.D. Prince wasn't just a farmer with land and money, he was also a descendant of one of the original homesteaders, meaning his name carried a lot of weight. That kind of legacy came with the power, influence, and a certain level of respectability, all things Lizzie knew how to leverage. JD had been married twice before. His first wife, Mary, bore him 2 children, but tragedy struck when she passed away in 1892. His second marriage was to Miss Leggett, a widow, but much like Arville's mysterious second marriage, it seemed to be a historical rebound, as it didn't last long. And then came Lizzie. And if we know anything about Lizzie, it's that she didn't do rebounds. She did strategy. Now Lizzie, her new husband J.D. France, her daughter Mary from her marriage to Charles Vaughan, her son Arville, his wife Lodi, and Arville's son Cleo all moved onto the farm, playing one big happy family. For a while at least. But while they were settling into their new life, the world was changing fast. 1908 wasn't just another year, it was the year that would change everything. Why? Because in 1908, the Model T was released. And if you know anything about the history, you know that wasn't just a car. It was the beginning of a revolution. A car, babes. This was huge news for everyone. The release of Model T wasn't just about a new set of wheels. It was about freedom, speed, and opportunity. For the first time, everyday people could afford a car, with Henry Ford selling them for just $850. This changed everything. Suddenly, people could go around faster, further, and with fewer questions asked. And you know that had an impact on folks in Lizzie's world. Because when you make it easier to move, you make it easier to run, hide, hustle, and reinvent oneself. In 1910, Arville and Lodi will move to Utica, Ohio, so the happy couple thought it was time for privacy, I guess. But they didn't go far from Lizzie. In 1913, Lizzie's 17-year-old daughter, Mary, had fallen in love with a local boy named Floyd Huff. Now, I assume they tied the knot, but I couldn't find any confirmation on this. What we do know is that Mary and Floyd welcomed Lizzie's second grandson that same year. Sadly, though, the child would not survive infancy, a heartbreaking loss. In 1915, Lizzie's daughter Mary and Floyd Huff had their second child, Virgil Huff, and happily, this baby survived to adulthood, bringing some joy to the family after the heartbreaking loss of their first. It seemed like the family was finding a bit of peace, but tragedy then would strike again in 1916. On July 12, 1916, Arville Lape is going to unexpectedly pass away at the age of 38 from injuries sustained in a motorcycle accident. He had been riding on the back of a friend's motorcycle when the accident occurred. This loss hit Lizzie the hardest. She disappeared from the headlines, stepping away from the public eye. Arville was buried in an unmarked grave in Utica, Ohio, and the family was left reeling. Just one day later, on July 13th, 1916, Cleo, Arville's 17-year-old son, was sent back to live with his mother, Maddie, who had been living a somewhat nomadic life after her second divorce from Arville. She had been selling soap to make ends meet, and now Cleo was returned to her care. This is very unclear if it was like a forced thing. I'm assuming it was a forced thing because technically Lizzie doesn't have custody. It would go back to Maddie, so of course it's like a gray area there. However, Cleo didn't go straight back to his mom. He was sent to live with his Aunt Lily and Uncle Dick Underwood, as Maddie was still constantly kind of moving around and trying to keep a stable life, and her home base was the aunt and uncles. So within just one day, Lizzie lost not only her son, but also a significant part of her relationship with Cleo, who had been practically next door. Still, Lizzie will keep in touch with him. They wrote letters often, and she would visit as much as possible. Lizzie adored spoiling Cleo, taking him on trips, showering him with gifts, and cherishing the bond they shared, because history tells us they were actually very, very close. By the time Lizzie was 65 years old, having lost her son in such a tragic way, for Lizzie, this seemed to mark an end of an era. She slowly faded from the headlines, and the final years of her life remained a mystery to history. Lizzie's story, a wild, bold, and complex tale, had reached its quiet conclusion. I so wish we knew what Lizzie had planned with the land she bought. Not much is told, but we know something. I know it was something. I just wish we knew. In the heart of hearts, I know it was something. I just don't know what happened. But yes, unfortunately, after the pass of her son, her life kind of just fades to history because I think it changed everything for her. Lizzie Lape, a woman who truly lived on her own terms, navigated through the highs and lows of life, love and survival in ways that few others could. From her marriages to her businesses, her unrelenting drive for power, and her struggles with loss, Lizzie's story was a testament to resilience, reinvention, and the complexities of a woman who knew how to play the game and make her own rules. A madam, yes, but also a mother, a businesswoman, and a survivor. A figure who carved out space for herself in a world that sought to limit her, and even when the odds were stacked against her, she found ways to rise above it all. That, my friends, is the tale of the good, the bad, the ugly, but also the glamour, the power, and the freedom of Lizzie Lape. Cheers, cheers, cheers to Lizzie Lape and the ending of her story. What a wild ride her life was. We made it, darlings. What a ride, though. What a ride through time, huh? Huge thanks for sticking with me and diving deep into Lizzie Lape's world, her power moves, her heartbreaks, her resilience. It's been such a blast uncovering her story with you all. Now, I'd love to hear from y'all. What was your favorite part of Lizzie's wild life? Was it the shocking marriages, or maybe the unapologetic rise to power? And what about the ultimate power move, divorcing one husband to marry his father? That's just straight up book trope material, right? For me, Lizzie's relationship with JC DeWatt was definitely one of the most intriguing. She was at her sharpest, I think. They were really a team, and I'm honestly bummed that it didn't last longer to see what a power couple they truly seem to want to be and could have possibly been. They were almost what seemed to be like business soulmates, so it's a bummer to see that it didn't go where it could have gone. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Drop them below. And I will see you guys really soon for more history, more power moves, and more wild stories of the ladies of the evening. But goodbye for now, and I'll see you very soon.
I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh.